How much influence does Rupert Murdoch and his media franchise have on politics? Do his well-known conservative beliefs affect what media his company, News Corp, produces? News Corp has an incredibly large reach across Australia, with it owning at least one newspaper in every state and territory, each of them being very popular within those areas. For example, in Adelaide and Queensland, the Advertiser and Courier Mail respectively have no real threats in terms of rival newspapers. And in New South Wales and Melbourne, the Daily Telegraph and the Herald Sun are both powerhouses. It also owns the second largest news website in Australia, news.com.au, as well as popular channels Fox and Sky News. With all this power and reach, not just within Australia, but also within large areas of the Western world, Murdoch's influence on the public's opinions and politics is one of the largest the world has ever seen. Before getting into Murdoch's possible influence and how it happens, let's talk about who he is first. Rupert Murdoch inherited his father's newspaper company at 21 years of age, and from there, he developed the company further and further, now owning many popular newspapers across Australia and in the US and UK. As of today, News Corp, Murdoch's company, is valued at $12.64 billion and has influence over Australia, United Kingdom and the United States media through its ownership of various newspapers, connections to politicians and key figures in society, and smaller brands under their names such as Fox and Sky News as mentioned earlier. Taking into account this influence, what negative or positive ideas might Murdoch be spreading? Rupert Murdoch is very conservative in his political beliefs, supporting leaders that lent into those right-wing ideals. In a paper owned by Murdoch called The Sun, an issue was released on the 11th of April in 1992 with the headline, "It's the Sun What Won It." This headline is The Sun claiming that they were a contributing factor to getting the Conservative Party elected in the 1992 election in the UK. This is just one example of Murdoch's conservative beliefs and influence showing in a product of his vast media company. This isn't the only example. Here are some others which show how Rupert Murdoch influences not only people, but politicians too.
And I think on all sides of the House there's a bit of a need for a hand on heart. We all did too much cozying up to Rupert Murdoch. I think we'd agree.
As seen in that clip, many politicians from the United Kingdom have been involved in some way with Rupert Murdoch in an attempt to gain favour from him, which could then come out in his media. In a different example, during the lead up to the 2007 election, the at the time opposition leader Kevin Rudd announced that the Labour government would finance a high-speed internet project. Murdoch was against this idea as it meant that people may be less likely to watch his news channels, such as Fox News, if there were better internet for people to access, and therefore he backed the Liberal government in his newspapers, as they believed the project proposed by Rudd would be unnecessary and a waste of money. However, this is a rare situation in which even with Murdoch's backing, the Liberals still weren't victorious in the 2007 election, winning just 55 out of the 150 seats. This is an example which shows that Murdoch does try to influence people's beliefs, but it doesn't always pan out. And with continuous growth of people straying away from cable television and newspapers as their source of information, his platform and therefore his influence can only shrink. Considering all these examples where Murdoch had both a large influence and a smaller influence, I believe that Rupert Murdoch does control his media to benefit his ideals. However, it isn't always due to his political beliefs per se. In the 2007 election example, Murdoch supported Liberal due to his business ambitions, rather than his personal political beliefs. There are other examples of this, such as in the UK when Brexit was occurring, where Murdoch's major papers, especially The Sun, promoted Brexit with headlines such as "Believe in Britain" and "Queen backs Brexit," which showed Murdoch's support for Brexit. While Brexit was supported by the conservative believers, which aligns with Murdoch's personal beliefs, the main reason for this push to leaving the EU wasn't because of his political beliefs, but also due to him believing that without his business being overseen by the EU regulations, he'll be able to produce more media authentic to his beliefs. It also makes him more favourable to the US, which was another driving force to supporting Brexit. With everything being said, it is clear that Murdoch and his views do affect his media franchise deeply, and these beliefs having such a large platform means it's inevitable that some people are influenced by his beliefs. With various newspapers in the Western world with large audiences, and shows with millions of watchers tuning into his shows that are under his control, Murdoch promotes his conservative ideas to masses of people. However, not all of his decisions are driven by this political belief as shown above. Oftentimes, he is driven by his business ambitions, and even sometimes, his influence isn't enough for him to have his way. Overall, Rupert Murdoch's 7-decade-long reign in his media company, which he recently stepped down from, was one of the largest displays of media controlling politics of all time, and brought many people to the right wing of politics.